The first step to getting these deck boards off is I got to remove that strip along the back. This little piece right here holds these boards down, and you can see how there's just some countersunk screws. Well, all the heads were all stripped out and I couldn't get them, so I just took a grinder and ground it off. So I'll just get a pry bar and just pry that strip off, then we can start taking out the deck boards. Not much holding those in. Now if you take a look, the factory only put one screw in the center of each board. They didn't put any screws in this cross member, and they only put one screw in this one. Well, we're going to do better than that. When we put this back together, we're going to do 2 screws on every cross member. This board had 1 bolt, 1 screw right in the center. The factory definitely did the bare minimum. So at the front, you can see how they're tucked up under this, which I like that idea. That's a great idea. No screws anywhere here. No screws anywhere on this cross member. This cross member just had 1. So basically every plank that's in here just has 1 set of screws right here, and that's it. But like I said, we're going to do 2 screws every cross member. That's the right way to do it. Boy, it sure makes stripping this decking off pretty quick. And usually these screws you can just snap off by hitting them, or you can use a cutoff wheel and cut them. I can tell you what, the next guy who has to replace the decking on this trailer isn't going to have such an easy time. There's going to be probably 100 additional screws that they didn't put in it. Now with all the boards out of here, we can actually see what we got, and it doesn't look too bad. I'm actually very happy with what it is. Not rotted out. It's got some, surface rust that we can wire brush off. It does have a few things that I don't like, the way the factory built it, but obviously this trailer is 18 years old and it hasn't affected its use in the last 18 years. We know that the trailer frame is perfectly straight because we checked the alignment, and if you guys want to know how to check the alignment on a trailer or align it to make sure that everything is in alignment to the hitch, I'll have a link to a video. But whenever I build a trailer, I like to take the the A-frame part, I like to run that all the way back into the frame back here. That would tie all the way up to there, and then this cross member would be filled in between, and then a little piece on this side. Like I said, this trailer is 18 years old and it hasn't affected anything in the last 18 years. Nothing's bent and the hitch isn't bent, so I'm not going to worry about it. The one thing that I am going to change is I'm going to put a piece of angle across here. That's going to do 2 things. One, it's going to give me a place to mount my breakaway box and my battery, and it's also going to give me a place to run an additional tube that goes down the trailer. And then in this section right here where that tube welds in, I'm going to drill a hole in this cross member, and the wiring is going to run up that tube for the 7-way plug. What the factory does for running wires is they just burn a hole through the cross members and just run the wires through it. So knowing that our wire is going to be protected from this cross member all the way up now to the tongue of the trailer, because it's going to be inside this 2.5-inch diameter tube, I'm also going to run schedule 40 pipe inside the frame to run my wires in, and that's this stuff right here. So when you ask for 1/2-inch schedule 40 pipe, the 1/2 inch isn't the outside diameter, it's the inside, and this wall thickness is just about 1/8 of an inch. And I also got some extra material, which is 1.5 inches by 3/8, so we can make some rub rail on the side of the trailer. And I also picked up some 1/8-inch diamond plate, thinking that I might want to make a couple steps that I can incorporate some clearance lights into. Then we'll get the trailer back on jack stands again and level, so that we can add this little cross piece in here of angle, and then run that 2.5-inch tube down the center of the trailer. It's cold today, guys. It is some cold this morning. We're gonna have to bundle up. I want to get that cross member welded in, and I want to get that piece of 2.5-inch tube welded into the trailer. So this piece is actually going to fit inside the frame. So this surface right here will be up under this lip. So we want to cut it like that. We want to do the same thing over here, just like that. Now we'll just unclamp this and bring it in the workshop to cut it. So these will be vertical, just like that. So that'll be the scrap on that side. And this will be the scrap on this side. You could cut this a bunch of different ways, but the way I'm going to try to do it is set this up on my chop saw because it does bevels in both directions. But you could use a circular saw with a metal cutting blade. You could use a angle grinder with a cutoff wheel, a torch, plasma cutter, all kinds of different ways. Then we can look down at our miter gauge and we see that that is 30 right there. So that's 25. So about 24.5 degrees. So now we can loosen this lock up and then bring the saw the other way to 24.5 degrees. Just like that. Then lock it down. So now we're all set to make the cut on the other side. Evolution also has another saw very similar to this, just smaller, 7 1/4 for like $150, and I love it. Works great. While it's right here, we might as well put a hole right in this for a wire to pass through. That's going to be coming up from that 2.5-inch tube, and then we can put a grommet in here to keep it all nice. Now I'll just bring this over to my drill press. I've got an annual cutter in it. So So the wires for all of the trailer lights and brakes and everything are going to end up eventually running through this hole, right? So I think actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this junction box and mount it right there, just like that, and have the wires come directly into the back of the junction box. That way this junction box is fully protected. All of these wires are fully protected. It'll look super clean, and then we can have the breakaway on either side because there's little knockout holes here that we can run the wires into for the breakaway. So all our connections will be right inside this. You actually won't see any wires anywhere on the trailer. The only thing you'll see is the big heavy 7-pin wire coming out of this junction box, but you won't see any wires going in it, so it'll go right through the back. That's going to be a super clean installation. Maybe that's how the factory does them, I don't know. If they don't, they probably should, because that's going to look super clean. This junction box will sit on it just like that. We'll drill a hole right here, so they'll come up into this area. We'll get these mounting holes drilled now, right through here. Now with our cross piece out here, you can see this is going to kind of fit something along the lines of that. So we'll have to clean up all the metal on the top and on the inside. We also need to run our 2.5-inch piece all the way back. So this piece is going to get notched here, then it's going to get welded back there. So the next thing we got to do is mark out center line on this, clean everything all up, and then I'm going to probably use a plasma cutter to cut out that 2.5-inch notch. I don't use a plasma cutter very often, but when I need one, they are just so awesome. I love that I don't need oxygen and acetylene to have to worry about running out of. And for you guys also interested in plasma cutting, I have a real popular video. It's called Plasma Cutting 101. It tells you everything you'll need to know about plasma cutting. It's real popular. I've got this cross member all sitting in place, and I've cleaned all up underneath the hitch everywhere where we need to weld, so we have a nice clean bright shiny metal that we can weld to. And the next thing we got to do is cut our 2.5-inch tubing that goes all the way to that back. Remember I told you I really don't like how they ran this hitch into this cross member. I like to run the hitch all the way back to the sides and then have the cross members in between. Watch how much this hitch relies on that cross member. When I push up and down on this hitch, watch what that cross member does. By us running this length all the way through, it's going to help strengthen all of it. Not obviously not that it needs it. Like I said, this trailer I don't think's ever seen a day in its life where it's ever been babied. This thing's been freighted probably since it was brand new. We're going to have it be a little structurally more sound by doing it this way, and it's also going to give us a place to run all our wires in. When I started metal fabrication many years ago, the tools to get into the trade were just astronomically expensive. Here you have a saw. It's a 7¼ inch metal cutting circular saw that would have cost you hundreds of dollars back in the day. This saw is under 120 bucks, comes with 4-foot track. I just think that this is an awesome time, to get into metal fabrication. Oh yeah, that drastically stiffens up the trailer. Now you have it welded, and it's already, you can't move the cross member. Like I said, we'll drill a hole in the end of that, and there'll be conduits that run along the cross members of the frame, so none of the wires will hang down and they won't be exposed to the elements. I don't know if you can see this or not, but I'm going to be using 3/32 7018, and I'm going to be stick welding it. I don't do a lot of MIG welding outside simply because of wind and just carrying away your gas coverage. It's just too problematic. So I end up doing a lot, especially structural stuff, outside with stick welding, and occasionally I do a little bit of flux core welding, especially on thinner stuff, and we're going to be doing some of that here very soon. It's so darn cold out here that the camera just won't record. It just keeps turning off. I've just had to press forward and kind of skip through the welding, but I can at least bring you in and show you exactly what I did right now. But this is just going to be so much stronger having this tied in all the way back. I just like that the wires are going to be concealed, and that junction box will be right here. Then the wire will just come right out the side and plug into the truck. I got to get a needle scaler because it is just about impossible to get up into these areas right here to clean all the slag out of them. But yeah, this came out really good. You can see what I had to do here is put in just a plate, a spacer plate, because this tube fits underneath this, which fits underneath this. So it brought it down a little bit, so I had to put a little spacer there. I mean, I didn't have to, but I wanted to because that way it's going to stiffen up the front of the trailer a little bit more. So yeah, this came out good. I'm very happy with it. Super strong. Oh, another thing I wanted to show you guys. I just put this on the back, and this thing seems to work good. It's my first day with it right now, but it definitely helped keeping the sun out of the back. That's always an issue when you're welding, where the sun is behind you. So you can see right now the sun is behind me, so if the sun gets down inside my hood, it just makes it real hard to see. So this is fireproof, and it just makes it really nice to be able to keep that sunlight out from the back of your hood. I'll have a link. It wasn't very expensive. This just pushed on all the way around. I don't know who makes it. It's just, I think it's just a cheap import, but I picked it up online on Amazon. The next thing I want to do is start working on the wiring and getting all this conduit installed. That way we can get all the lights and all the electrical hooked up on the trailer so that we can tow it to the wood yard so that we can get all the decking, because we're going to need the trailer to pick up the decking for this. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the hole drilled through that cross member so we can run our wires up. Then we'll start cutting conduit to length and running it between the frame rails, and we'll get our taillight housings mounted. I normally use a water-soluble cutting fluid when I'm doing this type of stuff, but it is so cold today on this occasion that my cutting fluid froze up. This WD-40 is barely spraying, and it started to gel up, so I had to put it inside my coat off and on to keep it warm enough so it worked. You know, another thing we're going to have to do, guys, is underneath this box tube, we're going to have to put like a little 1/4 inch hole near the back and a little 1/4 inch hole near the front. So if any condensation or water gets in there, then it'll have a way to drain out so that it doesn't rot. Plus, it also gives me another place for the winter that I can squirt fluid film up inside these tubes to prevent them from rusting. So I'm not overly worried about it, but it's a good thing to do and something that the factory necessarily wouldn't do. That's why doing your own stuff sometimes is nice, because you can take that extra time and do it the way you want to do it. With that hole drilled, now there's going to be a piece of conduit that runs along the trailer over to here. It's going to stop. There's going to be another piece of conduit that picks up right here. There's going to be a hole in the side of the conduit to let out the wire for the brakes, and then you just fish a wire inside the axle tube from this side over to that side, and then bring the wire out the axle to pick up that brake drum there and that brake drum there. The conduit will continue this way through this hole, which I have to enlarge because it's not big enough, but I'm going to make it so it's tight around the conduit, and then we can weld it all the way around the conduit so it actually strengthens this channel up a little bit more. We also got to do the same thing here. Then it's going to extend about a ½ inch beyond this bottom lip. I'm going to get a little weld right here that'll allow the wire to come out. Then we're going to put another conduit across here to go all the way over across to that side to pick up the tail light that's going to be right there. In hindsight, I should have gone with 3/4 inch conduit rather than the ½ inch conduit that I ended up using, because I had a hard time getting all those wires stuffed through that ½ inch conduit. So if you guys are going to do this, make sure you're using 3/4 inch conduit so you're not fighting it. And I'm still using WD-40 because my water soluble fluid is still frozen. A bunch of ways you could cut this. You could use a plasma cutter, a portable bandsaw, hacksaw, whatever you got. I'm going to use a circular saw with a metal cutting blade on it. The same one you saw me using earlier. Once we get this all wired, then we can run it down the road and get all the wood for it. You can see the cut it does, nice and smooth. Just take a file, chamfer the inside, and just take a flap wheel and clean the outside up so there's no sharp edges. I made sure to clean up around the holes before I slid the conduit in, just to make it that much easier, because we want it bright shiny metal when we go to weld it. This is going to be sort of a dry fit. We're going to have to kind of force it together, I think. Have to bend it uphill a little bit on this side. There we go. Now we can make some marks where we want our holes or our wire to come out. And I want it to face down so any crap that gets in there can drain out. All right, we'll use this line that's in the pipe, and right there we'll just go like a couple inches behind the axle. I'll do the same thing here, and then we can just rotate this pipe downwards when we're done. A few years ago I picked up a drill press on Marketplace, cut it apart, did some work on it, welded on this plate so I could incorporate this mag drill on it, and now this is my dual purpose mag drill / drill press, and I love it. If you want to see how I built it, I'll have a link up above. That's one of the reasons why I like that mag drill stand that I made. Because not only can I use it as like a drill press, I can also take it out on a job site and use it like a regular mag drill. It's extremely handy to have. Oh, there we go, right there. Then we just take these and face them downwards when we go to weld it in. Then any crap that gets in there just drains out. To buy this trailer new, it's going to cost you around $4,000. When we're all said and done with this series, I'm going to go through and show you an itemized list of everything we've done to this trailer, how much we spent, and we're going to see if we saved any money over the price of buying new. All right, we got all the metal prepped. Everything is clean. I got a tab that I made for the back to hold the conduit there, and to hold the conduit up here, just so it doesn't flop around. I doubt it would anyways. I'm going to put a little strap on it, just like that, to hold it from vibrating. It's time to weld it up. FlexCore self-shielded wire is going to be perfect for this. That way we don't have to worry about blowing through that thin wall conduit. I say thin wall, it's about 1/8 inch, which is what all the other metal is on the trailer. Let's see, 30 thousandths. Let's just go manual mode. Do 100 and say 130 amps. Let's go a little less. 125 or so. Those are our settings. Whenever I buy something or take on a project, I always think to myself, how much is this going to cost me when I'm all said and done? Because I know that I'm going to end up doing a bunch of stuff to it. In my head, I can justify like purchasing something like this as long as I can have the cost of this trailer not cost me more than something that I would buy new and still have it be just as good, if not better. In other words, if I can build this trailer for less than what it would cost me to buy a brand new one, I know for a fact that it's going to be done better than anything I could buy, and it's going to still save me some money. Better yet, you know, if I can make money on it when I go to sell it, that's even great. But, you know, worst case scenario, I break even. And I do that whether I'm buying a motorcycle, whether I'm buying a car, whether it's a trailer, whatever it is. I always make sure that when I come out the other end, that I at least broke even, if not maybe made a little bit of money. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's the goal that I have in mind. This is exciting. Now we can get our taillights mounted. We got the conduit mounted all up underneath. We can get our taillights on next. Made these cross members a lot stronger because it's got weld all the way around it. Same thing on that one. That one. So the wire will come out of here, go right into this, around, make a little loop into this, so this little bit will be exposed. That'll be okay. Come out. Then we got our hole right here that's at a 45 to pick up that electric brake. And then it's going to continue on. Another one's right here. That'll come out to this wheel. Then it'll come down the left tail light. Then it'll come across to that tail light. The next thing we got to do is mount our tail lights. Now these already come with a hole in the side, which we're not going to use. And the other design flaw that I really don't particularly like about these, although these housings are super sturdy, I'm very happy with the quality of these. You could actually stand on these and use them as a step. They're that durable. It's not tin. This is heavy metal. They're nice housings. It's got it recessed in the end here. There are LED bulbs that come with them. I'll have a link to this stuff. So that way you don't bust out your side marker. They're recessed in for your tail lights so you don't bust those out. This is going to end up getting plugged with like a little plastic push-in plug. Yes, I could weld it shut, but I'm not going to. So what we're going to do is put some new mounting holes in it. We're going to put a hole here for the wire to come into this box. But the one thing that I was mentioning that I don't really like is there's no drainage holes in this. So any condensation or moisture that builds up in this just sits in there. There's no way to drain it out. So we're also going to put a hole in the bottom, just one hole for drainage. And that'll also give me a place where I can squirt the fluid film nozzle up in the winter to winterize these taillights. Just stick it in there. I could also do it here too, but it's nice to have a drain for something that's enclosed so that this thing doesn't completely rot out. And the way I sized this hole is I took one of my annular cutters and I took a grommet that I want to use, figured out the size of the grommet, and then just match that up to the appropriate size annular cutter. Oddly enough, one day I was on Marketplace scrolling and I came across this trailer, and I don't even have a use for this trailer. I got no reason to even buy it, but I saw it. It seemed like a good deal. I felt that I could provide some useful information on this channel, and maybe when I'm all said and done, I might be able to make a couple bucks. So that's why I picked it up. This is going to work awesome. I'm getting wicked excited about this. So these taillights will go just like this. That hole that we put in the back of this right there, that's right there on that cross member. So that'll put the hole right about in through here. And then we're going to weld on this piece of angle. Not only is it going to conceal the wire, but it's also going to make this corner more rigid. The wire will come out the bottom of this square and go right into that tube. It'll be completely concealed where it would normally get hit and banged up. It'll just be a little 90-degree corner right there. And now we go from having the mag drill in the workshop doing all the work to those taillights to back outside here. I'm going to do this whole side, showing you everything beginning to end, then I'll do the other side off camera. But this hole right here, you can see that we traced out right there. That's the actual size of the hole that's in the taillight. I went 2 sizes bigger with this one just so that the wire doesn't make any contact with this area here. I've also ground back any of the areas where I'm going to weld against, along here, along this edge, and along here. You always want to make sure you weld into bright, shiny metal. That's the best way of doing it. That way you don't get any porosity. Alright, first thing we'll do is we'll get this little, I don't know what you want to call it, wire chase way, I guess. We'll get this clamped on there with a few welds in it. So we're flush along here. So, I mean, this doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot. So we're just going to put probably maybe 3 1-inch beads on it here and here. And probably across here, maybe grind that flush. Like I said, guys, it is so cold the camera just keeps shutting off, and I just welded this whole thing without it even being on camera.
So although I don't really have a specific need or use for this trailer, I'll probably hang on to it for a couple years, use it for, you know, some small projects, and then eventually sell it, which I'll have no problem at all.
Double and triple check everything. Make sure these taillights are on nice and square. This is our last opportunity to have them be perfect.
I'm real happy with these taillights. I spent a lot of time researching before I decided to make a decision. These come with the lights and everything. I didn't want some cheap sheet metal housing that was going to bend and break, and I didn't want to spend a small fortune either. I'll have a link to them down below. They weren't a whole lot of money.
I'm really happy how these came out. We got some weld up under there. We got some more on the inside and all out here. And hopefully, soon enough, the weather will clear up so we can get some paint on this stuff, but this thing is solid. You could easily stand on these, no problem. But you see how much better these housings are going to be having them up here versus down here. They're about 12 inches higher, so they're a little more visible. But with that said, let's get these old taillight brackets cut off and ground flush.
A viewer recently suggested installing like a tongue jack on each side of the trailer back here. I really like that idea. That way, if you wanted to load or unload the trailer and it's not hooked to the tow vehicle, you easily can. Plus, if you ever had a flat tire, between the 3 jacks on the trailer, you could literally, the trailer could jack itself up and you could change the tire.
And here's the passenger side installed. So with both taillights installed, now it's time to start running our wire. And for wiring, I went overboard. This is number 14. 2-conductor wire, marine grade. It's rated for 600 volts. It's oil, salt water, gasoline, and UV resistant. And 14 gauge is way more than what it needs to be. This would handle 15 amps per conductor, but we're not going to even be drawing anywhere near that. But I wanted to make sure, like I said, that we have something good and we don't have to worry about it. And this being marine grade, it's, you know, rated for rough duty, salt water, and all the stuff that this trailer is going to be exposed to. So we need to get one of these from this taillight over the conduit all the way up to the tongue where that junction box is. We need to get another one from that taillight all the way up, same place. Then we also need to get a number 10 wire from each brake or on top of each axle all the way up to the tongue. I think the best way to do this would be to feed it through this conduit first, get it all the way, just work it up all the way to the tongue of the trailer, and then just let it make this 90 and then into this taillight housing. And I'm going to leave probably a foot of slack coiled up inside this taillight housing. So if you ever have to replace the taillight or, you know, whatever, you've got plenty of slack to do what you need to do. And these can also serve like as a junction box if you ever needed them to. Like, let's say you wanted to add additional lights or some clearance lights. You can put your clearance lights, run your wire back up into here, and use them like a junction box. I am super happy how clean this is, guys. So there'll be a red and black here, and then we'll just label it up in the junction box up front because the other side will be red and black too, but it'll be easy enough to figure out. You see how the wire comes up through. Still got to put a grommet on it. Same thing over here. I got a nice big loop inside the housing. Then it comes down and goes into the conduit. And it makes a corner right here. There's both wires. And then I still got to fish the other, so this would be the passenger side taillight. I just got to get that up through there and a number 10 wire, but I'm going to do them both at the same time. But it's just starting to get really cold. My water's frozen, and yeah, it's just getting cold. So that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Be sure to tune in next week because we're going to install electric brakes on all 4 wheels. While we're there, we're going to hook up all of the wiring, including the electric brakes. New videos every Friday. If this is something that you like, please don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. If you're interested about any of the tools I'm using, I'll have links down below. I'll see you next week, guys. Stay safe, take care, God bless.